Greetings and welcome to the Southside Help Center show. We'd like to thank everyone for tuning in, and please, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, give us a call here at the station. This is a live call-in show. Our number here is 312-738-1060. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please call us here at the station, 312-738-1060, and I will do my best to answer those questions for you. Again, I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. This is the Southside Help Center show. And what we do here at the Southside Help Center, when we do our show each week, we get an opportunity to highlight programs that we offer. Southside Help Center was started in 1987 by Mrs. Betty Smith, and we have been doing all sorts of things ever since. So we are truly grateful to be able to continuously bring great services. So thank you all for tuning in. Give us a call if you need to. Also, you can always go to our website, www.southsidehelp.org, www.southsidehelp.org, and it'll give you a list of all of the programs that we offer at the Southside Help Center. Southside Help Center is primarily HIV prevention and education. We've been doing that since 1987 when our director discovered the program, and the reason she did was she found that African Americans were not getting equal treatment. So she started the agency so that we may be able to provide that service and also educate. Let me say this again. Education, education, education. Education is the key. And we continuously talk about that at the Southside Help Center and then the different programs that we offer. And when I say education, we have been doing prevention for a lot of years. And when we talk about prevention versus intervention, it's very important that you know the difference. Most of what we have to do is intervention. Intervention is when you have to come in and intervene, when you have to intercede, when there's already a problem that exists. Prevention is stopping it before it happens. So we've been doing prevention for many, many years, but so oftentimes we find ourselves doing intervention because the prevention is not working. It is so important that people understand once you know better that you do better. Once you know better, that you do better. We're going to talk a little bit about some of the programs that we're doing at the Southside Help Center. I want to make sure also that we kind of highlight our youth programs, and we know in the city of Chicago, we've been going through a lot of difficult times and a lot of difficult moments with the violence. And again, this is even before summer. Summer has yet to start, and we got a lot of stuff going on. So it's so important that you take advantage of youth programming. We know the school will be out in the next week, 2 weeks. Some of the suburban schools are already out, but school is going to be out. And I say this all the time. Put pieces in place so that the kids will have something to do. Believe me when I say idle time is the devil's workplace. That is so true. So please take advantage of programs that the center offers to get your kids involved. Please. And it's so important that you do this now because programs are going to fill up very quickly once school is out. So now while you have an opportunity, parents, please check out the website, www.southsidehelp.org, or go by the center. We're located 10420 South Halsted. Stop by the center. Our program director is Ms. Tasia Smith, and she's the one that's doing the youth program. So I can talk about them, but I would really love for you guys to go in and meet Ms. Smith, Tasia Smith, and so you can get a kind of feel for her and the idea of the things that they're going to be doing over the summer. She has a lot of stuff lined up for our youth over the summer. Parents, take advantage of it. The other thing is with that, you know, we're going to be doing some mentoring, male mentoring, female mentoring, which is vital. So oftentimes, you know, we often think that men are going to be men once they reach a certain age, and the reality of it is that is a taught behavior. Just because they're adult males does not mean that they'll be men. They have to be taught, and that's why mentoring is so important. So it's important that, one, get your kids enrolled into a summer program before the summer starts so that you'll know exactly where they're going to be. Two, go up there and meet Ms. Tasia Smith and find out who it is that's going to be providing directions for them over the summer. And three, familiarize yourself with the staff and our history because, again, parents, I cannot say enough, help us to help you. Because even though school is out and summer's here, we still have to work. So get somebody there that, or get your kids enrolled in some of these programs so you'll know exactly what they'll be doing over the summer, and it'll give you a little bit of relief that you know that your kids are in a safe place. I'm going to run to our website real quick. Check it out. This is the Southside Help Center's website. So we got a lot of stuff on the website, and as we continue, we constantly are adding and updating programs and some of the stuff that we're going to be doing. So please, please, please periodically we need you to go and check the website and see exactly what we're doing and what events we have coming up. So please go to the website and check that out. Not only with our HIV prevention and education, because June is National HIV Testing Month. We've been talking about it, and we're not going to stop talking about it. We have to get out here and get involved. We have to get out here and talk about prevention and intervention when we start talking about HIV and how it's infecting us as a people too. We talk about all the time we talk about abstinence. What does that mean? Because we're not just talking about prevention and intervention. When we talk about HIV prevention, we have to talk about abstinence. That is the where you start at. That is where you start at. No sex, no drugs, no problem. Abstinence. But it's so easy for us as parents or us as providers to say, just say no. You remember the campaign back there in 84, 85, 86 where the First Lady talked about say no to drugs. Well, ultimately, we can say no, but what if we don't teach them or give them alternatives? So that means, yeah, I said no, but now what? So that's what a lot of these programs we're going to be providing over the summer is going to do. We're going to talk about alternatives, not just to sex, but also we're going to talk about alternatives to the street, violence, drugs, and so forth. I got a caller. Caller, you on the air? Yes, caller, you on the air?
Good evening. You know, a lot of these different places, non-profit, they don't think nothing about passing out condoms like to a 12-year-old, and I got a problem with that because it's going to go a little bit further. And I said on one show when they talking about sex and alcohol, sometimes people make some not wise decisions. And like when my daughter was small, like on Christmas and Thanksgiving, I would have a little wine with the dinner. And I made this point where maybe sometimes we should teach a child the consequences when they go over their limit. You know, start teaching children certain things. But those same people last week blast people that, but people have no problem in terms of giving a child like a 12-year-old and up a condom without no problem, without no education in terms of, you know, teach them wisely about drinking.
Absolutely, and I don't know. That must be something that they used to do back in the day, because I remember my mother doing that as well. We had this red wine that they would let us have at Christmas time and around Thanksgiving time, and the reality of it is it just is not a good decision to give our children alcohol at no point. And again, you're absolutely correct when we start talking about prevention, and that's why I wanted to make sure I started off with what prevention is, and when we start talking about abstinence and what does that mean. But so oftentimes, because sex has always been a taboo, the subject has been a taboo. When you start talking about the results of it, it's a taboo. No parents want to talk about the consequences of having sex. No parents, I'm sorry, most parents, and let me say this, parents, if it don't apply, let it fly. If it don't apply, let it fly. But so oftentimes, because we always talk about sex in the dark, so whether we're talking about it, the lights turned off, whether you're doing it, the lights turned off. In the daytime, you make the room as dark as possible, because so oftentimes we don't want to talk about sex, and we certainly don't want to talk about it to our youth. So they're not getting the necessary education in the place that they're supposed to get the first education, which is in the home. Why? Because parents are afraid to talk about it. And we always talk about, you know, if you talk about sex, you're giving them permission to do it. Nonsense. We have to educate our young people, educate our youth as, yes, the consequences of having sex, but it has to start in the home. And two, as parents, we have to know how to do that. We have to know how to start off with that subject. One, always start off with abstinence, you know, and I make sure that we talk about abstinence first. One, because if you don't talk about it, someone else will. So let's start off with abstinence, one, in the home. And that's not having sex. And abstinence don't mean don't do it, or if I do, I'm going to kill you, and if I find out. And most of the time we threaten our children about sex as opposed to educating them about sex. And we oftentimes don't know when that time should be. So by the time they reach 12, they've been exposed to, most times, to their little friends. And what happens when that happens? They're going to tell them all of the wrong information. So we're going to continue to say, yes, we want you to make sure that we talk about condoms, we pass out condoms, but there's a reason for that. So it's so very important that we get the message out that, yes, sex education starts a long time before 12. and it has to start in the home. But we as parents also have to be educated on how to have that conversation. We don't do it. And most time we talk about the open relationships that we have with our children, but those relationships, and I think about that because I felt as though I had an open relationship with my sons when they were growing up, because I did provide them with early intervention in terms of sex education. But the reality of it is most times they don't come to us as parents until after they've done something. But the reality of it is if we start early in building a foundation, when we start talking about sex education, building a foundation for when we say no, or for when we talk about abstinence, when oftentimes they don't even know what that word means. So yes, we're going to continue to pass out condoms. And two, I say this all the time, we have to start much earlier in terms of education, because the reality of it is by the time they reach that age, they've gotten a lot of bad information from a lot of different people. So please, remember, yes, we pass out condoms and we will give them to young people, but the reality of it is we start with education, and we say that education must first start in the home early on, so that by the time they reach 12, it won't even be about a condom. It'll be about abstinence and abstaining and knowing what that actually means, and being willing to do so. And I talk about peer pressure all the time as well, because it tears down so often 16, 17 years of hard work. So yeah, they're going to stand on you about condoms. They're going to talk about how you shouldn't give them out. They're going to talk about what it should look like in terms of early intervention. But please believe me, we as parents have to do a better job early on in educating ourselves, so that we'll know how to provide the education for our youth, so that that's not something that happens to your children. You know, that the condoms are just being given out, then they can educate the educator, which is ultimately what our goal is. So I appreciate that phone call, and thank you again. And please do call us here at the station if you have any questions, comments, or concerns. We're talking about the programs the Southside Help Center has been offering since 1987, and we're coming up on about 30 years, and we are so very excited to still be around and still be able to provide quality education, be it sex education, be it HIV prevention, or be it substance abuse. And people don't never think about how early sometimes substance abuse start. And all of these things do start in the home. Most times, parents, if it don't apply, let it fly. Don't call me angry. Most of the times, when we start talking about what is your child's first exposure to drugs, and when I talk about drugs, it's all inclusive. I don't separate alcohol out, because the reality of it is people make bad decisions under the influence of alcohol the same way people make bad decisions under the influence of other drugs. When we start talking about narcotics, what does that mean? Any mind or mood altering substance. Let me say that again. We start talking about narcotics, any mind or mood altering substance. Now, just to give you an idea of what I mean by that, think about those family members or those people that you may know that when they get intoxicated, they're the sweetest people in the world. Then you have some on the other side of the coin. When they get intoxicated, they're extremely violent, and they always end getting into a fight. So we define drugs or substance abuse as any mind or mood altering chemicals, and alcohol is included in that. And we have to think about, when is our children's first exposure, and how early do we start the process of education. Another thing that we do is, they used to talk about putting a little something in the baby's bottle so they can go to sleep. We don't think about that as the initial or the early part of when our kids are exposed. Or we don't talk about those parents who may give their children a sip of whatever it is that they may be having on New Year's or on Christmas or on Thanksgiving. And you got to remember, when we start talking about the process of programming, so oftentimes we've been programmed to believe that we have to have alcohol as a part of any party. Anytime someone is planning a party, think about this. The first thing at the top of the list is what the drinks are going to be. And that's programming, and we do that early on. And you have to think, when kids see that same process, they start to mimic that same behavior. Most adults, when they talk about a party, the first thing we talk about is what's going to be on the top of the list as far as what's going to be the drinks. And that's what we think we need to party, and that's why we've been programmed much earlier. So it's important that we look at when that first exposure is, and that we start to make some different decisions, or we start to program our children differently when you start talking about these things. And I'm only talking about that is because our last caller talked about the fact that we give condoms to 12-year-olds and how she had spoke about giving the kids a little sip on Christmas and Thanksgiving and those big holidays, and people were attacking her. And the reality of it is we have to talk about all of these subjects openly. We cannot continuously in our communities not talk about things until the worst of it has happened. When we talk about HIV prevention and education, I always think about the fact that most people, when you start to talk about it, don't want to hear it. But the moment it impacts their family, then they call and they want to know all of these different things about HIV and how you get it, how you don't get it, and how you prevent it. We know that there's a big gap. We talk about bridging the gap because we know 20 years ago, 25 years ago, when HIV was having such a big impact on our community before they had medications that would kind of slow the process down, everybody wanted to know, and they still was talking about if I eat off of the same spoon, or if I eat off of the same fork, or if I'm in the same house, or if I use the same restroom, am I going to get HIV? Well, a lot of people still believe that to be the case because of a lack of education. And that's why we say don't wait until something impacts your family before you start to talk about it openly. That happens most time when our young people get pregnant. Then we want to talk about sex and no sex as opposed to early on. How do we prevent pregnancies? Well, guess what? Prevention talks about this. Condoms are safer. And again, when we talk about safe sex versus prevention and just the whole gamut, 100% way, no sex, no drugs, no problem. Or if you're in a monogamous relationship and there's no HIV present, then yes, that's 100% safe. But we have to start talking about these things a lot earlier if we're going to educate. We cannot wait until things happen and then we say, okay, now we're going to go in and talk about pregnancy or pregnancy prevention and condoms and condom prevention. And most people don't talk about the condom until they see the condom in their children's possession, and then it becomes an issue. When the reality of it is we have to talk about prevention, intervention, and we have to do it early on so that they make the connection. And again, we talk about repetition. Repetition is when we say stuff over and over and over again. It's important that we do repetition because most time that's the way that they get it. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please call us here at the station. Our number 312-738-1060. This is a live call-in show. So if you have any questions or if you have any comments, call us so we can talk about them. Don't wait until I'm gone and then talk about what I said. Then call into the show now and let's talk about some of these things that we got going on in our community. But meanwhile, until I get those calls, I'll talk about some more of the programs that we're offering. Southside Help Center also has case management. We deal with a lot of HIV positive clients, not solely, but we deal with a lot of them. So we have case management. So it's important that if you know someone who's HIV positive and they're not in care or they're not in treatment, please call us at the center. Our number there is 773-445-5445. Call us at the center so that we can definitely get you plugged into case management. Also, we are now an affiliate of AHF, and what that means is we have clinics at our disposal, so that when we do have HIV positive clients or those who are impacted by this disease, we can send them to the clinic. We have a clinic on 26th, and we just opened another one in Hyde Park. Those clinics are vital in our community, so we're very, very grateful to be able to be a part of that, because now people can definitely get sent straight into treatment and care, or they can get a case manager. And we'll talk a little bit more about what case managers does in a second. But meanwhile, let's take our caller. Caller, you're on the air. You're on the air, caller.
Good evening again.
Yes.
You're talking about a lot of lay people have a lack of knowledge. I remember once when I was over at the University of Chicago, this is a doctor, and would ask me all kinds of questions. I felt I had a problem with him asking me that anyone in my home had HIV and asking me certain questions that didn't have anything to do with my particular problem. This is a lay person now supposed to be very well educated in terms of the health care, because we got some professional people that's buffoons.
Absolutely. And I agree with that. And one of the things that we say, we talk about, when we start talking about HIV and prevention, we talk about the fact that people think just because an individual is HIV positive that they should know everything there is to know about HIV, and that's just not the case. And so oftentimes when we talk about healthcare professionals such as doctors, most of them have specialties. So for instance, when you're talking about an OB-GYN, or when you're talking about a bone specialist, or when you're talking about a neurologist, most of the time, those individuals, yes, they are doctors, and yes, they are very well educated in most of the time. But my point is this. So oftentimes, those doctors be specialty doctors. And yes, you may think that because they're a doctor that they're supposed to know everything about everything, and they just don't. Most of the times when it's a specialty, for instance, a neurologist, which we know is a brain doctor, they know everything there is to know about the brain. But if you go to talking about the bones, they may not be as well educated or as knowledgeable as they may be about this subject. And we get that so oftentimes with a lot of our doctors. We think because they are doctors that they should know about all of these things, and they just don't. So that's why we talk about it. It's important that when we go to the doctor and we have issues and concerns, if we're looking at specialties or doctors with specialties, that we go for that reason, because they don't know everything about everything. And most of the time we talk about family doctors or physicians. Those individuals have a, let's say, a broader range because they're family doctors. So they may be able to tell you about the rhinovirus or the cold, or they may be able to talk a little bit about bone. They may be able to talk a little bit about HIV. They may be able to talk a little bit about cancer, because they're not just specialists. So that's why so oftentimes you have to go to specialists for particular reasons, and most of the times when we go to our family doctor, we ask a lot of questions. But if you notice, when you go to your family doctor with specifics, oftentimes they refer you out because that's not what they do. So that just says that all doctors do not know all things. So it's important that when we go to the doctor, that we know that. And if a doctor has limited knowledge about the things that you want to know, do a little more research and find out where a doctor may be. They can provide you with some more information so that you can get as educated as you possibly can about the subjects in which concern you the most. So it's important that we know. When we talk about the Southside Health Center, we talk about having multiple programs that deal with multiple things, because you need specialists. We were talking about case management. When we start talking about people who need case managers, those are the system navigators. It's important because we will get stuck. We won't know how to make it, not just to a doctor's appointment. Or case managers are vital, especially when we talk about HIV prevention, because so oftentimes people who are impacted by the disease don't have as much knowledge, not only of HIV but of the system. And that's why the case managers are so vital. Southside Health Center has a superb group of individuals who are case managers. Let me just say one name is Arlette Brooks. It's phenomenal. I've watched her so oftentimes work with her clients, and she is very knowledgeable, and she's been able to navigate the system and get people into treatment, get people into care. And when they need assistance with other things, she's been able to make sure that they were able to get the right referrals. That's what case managers do. They help you to navigate the system. The Southside Health Center has HIV case managers as well. So if you know someone impacted, please give us a call at the center. Our number there, 312, but 773-445-5445. Please call us at the agency, and then get hooked up with a case manager, and they can help you to navigate the system. I'm going to go one more time. Back to our piece. We're talking about the programs that the center has to offer. So please go to our website, scroll through, check out the programs, because again, we've been doing HIV testing, we've been doing hepatitis, we've been doing meningitis vaccinations. We have a couple of more clinics that we're associated with. We have a lot of things coming up for the summer. So please go to the website, check out some of the things that we got to offer at the Southside Health Center, and please, please, please take advantage of that. Let me just throw out some dates, because we know June is National HIV Testing. So we are going to be all over the city. We're gonna start out at Douglas Park over on the west side. We're gonna be over there on the 20th, June 20th. We're gonna be doing an event over at Douglas Park. So please check us out over there. The time will be from about 11 to 3. We'll be on the west side, Douglas Park, from 11 to 3. So please check that out. We're gonna make sure that we upload all of our dates so that you can just refer back to them as you need it. You can go to the website, check out the Douglas Park on the 20th, Jackson Park on the 22nd, 63rd and Vernon. We'll be there on the 25th, as well as the Kroc Center on the 30th. We got a lot of dates coming up because, again, June is National HIV Testing Month, so please take advantage of these dates. If you see someplace on the list of events that will be at, come on out and get tested. It's important that people know their status, because when they do, if there's positive results, you know what you need to do to improve the quality of life. If there are negative results, you know what you need to do to maintain that status. So please, just because it's negative, positive, educate yourself. We're going to be all over the city of Chicago providing HIV prevention and education. Take advantage of it. If you have youth that you want to get involved in after school, contact Ms. Taja Smith. Number there is 773-445-5445. Again, we'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. We'd like to thank our callers. If you have any other questions, comments, or concerns, call us at the agency or come by. Again, we'd like to thank everyone. Until we see you again, we bid you peace.